I would like to share a thought about Nietzsche, something as they started researching again recently, like they opened his files and start looking at his medical condition, that they realized that he might not be suffering from consequences of syphilis, but rather some genetic disease, it seems. So some of his genetic propensions. And since this is being put into question, another thought struck me as events around my life and out in the world are happening nowadays where bureaucrats are just running amok and declaring anything that they don't want to be uh, problematic, and those buzzwords all over the place. Now, I always thought of Nietzsche as he had a very good sense of humor in a time that people were very serious, very stern about everything almost. Nietzsche was kind of fooling around, uh, probably because of his intellect. Like he couldn't believe probably that people were so narrow-minded. I'll give you an example. When someone like Nietzsche says, and I quote, they say that bad men don't like music. How can the Russians have music? This is a joke. Like it's a pun to his society. They despise the Russians and all that. It's a Germanic thing. Um, for me, he was being humorous. He was making fun of the stern times that he was living in. But at the same time, and at some point, it might have struck him that, oh my God, they really believe in all of this. Because when you are in a certain way, you don't believe that others think or approach things differently than you do. Like if you're a good person, you will never think, or you usually don't think, that people are bad, that they are bad people, not that people are bad, that they are bad people out there. And when you're bad, you think that everyone is out to get you and you can't really, so you have to be tricky. And if you're a compulsive liar, you tend to think that people are compulsive liars as well. So you expect that they will never say the truth. Therefore, you can kind of get away with your lies because you think that everybody's lying. And then suddenly, when push comes to shove and shit hits the fan, to put it bluntly, you realize that no, not everyone is lying. In fact, a lot of people are against, way more people are against someone who is a compulsive liar than what the liar believes. So, you know, people don't really like lies. So, because by lying, you make things uncertain, and people don't like uncertainty. We like comfort. But anyway, I hope you get the point. And when he realized that people are really that level of stern, perhaps something did snap. Perhaps he realized, oh my God, I'll have to be serious because I can't be joking with those guys. Like they think I'm being serious. But um, being the times he was living in, there's a lot more than just the psychological aspect or some disease. Since people are reconsidering the whole cause for his internment, for allegedly having an emotional breakdown, I'm considering the emotional breakdown as well. Based on the content of what he was saying, due to the times where he was living, perhaps and knowing the bureaucrats, the European bureaucrats, that Kafka went a step further, wrote books about, like, pointing out the bureaucracy. You're guilty of what? Oh, we are not certain yet, but we are getting there. Um, and I've seen a lot of this in Europe. And historically, if you read the history of Europe, like if you see their rebellions and revolutions, and like the whole Protestant thing, that you would find entire villages like just impaled in trees across, like if you were traveling across the city, across the region, like the mentally unstable that Europeans can get in the name of mental stability, that bureaucracy claims to represent, knowing how petty some people inside that environment are. I'm really considering, was he really crazy, or did he really went crazy? Or did they wait for a moment of weakness, because we all have, or we should, where he just let out his feelings, so they could accuse him of being deranged, mentally unstable, or something of the sort? Did they put something in his drink so he would behave in a frenzy, or do something stupid? Because I'm also aware that you can actually put certain things, and some very easy to find things, like out in the nature, in people's drinks, to drive them nuts for a couple of months or so. Because apparently he was put into a mental institution for life, wasn't he? Like, didn't he die in a mental institution? Now, knowing the bureaucrats here, in Europe at least, because we're talking about Europe, I could talk ages about bureaucrats elsewhere, but there's a reason why I'm not somewhere else, why I decided to be in Europe, despite the fact that I'm criticizing the European bureaucracy currently. But again, I could be wrong. Suddenly I made a big mistake instead. Could it be because he said things that certain petty bureaucrats really didn't like? Because he was tackling with moral dilemmas, and he was trying to find solutions for the things that Europe was about to face, because there were groups of people who were interested in pushing certain agendas. And suddenly to have someone like Nietzsche around, who was influential, who held a serious position. And this has also a bit with the whole current, that Canadian academic that has been speaking against the politically correctness and the new laws that are being drawn without considering a lot of aspects, that is going, according to that Canadian academic, it is going to blow in their faces eventually. And that person, he's a psychiatrist, psychologist, specialized in totalitarian regimes. Now, if a guy like that is coming out in the open, putting his academic position in risk, to stop madness from happening, he might know what the whole language, the whole psychology behind, the whole structure of the thing, the pathos of the whole mindset that is being preached currently in universities, that is leading to those new laws and regulations that are being put into place. Like in Canada now, there's this new law that declares you must accept certain terms, or you'll be paid you'll have to pay a fee, and you can be like, what if people refuse to do that? They refuse to pay a fee. Are you going to put them in jail because they don't want to use one word, or a set of words or whatever? Because they refuse to use those words, they're going to be put in jail now. Do you know where this is going? Like, and I've seen that happen in Brazil. Brazil, they currently, or they had, and that's kind of when I saw that this thing was being brewed there. I left. I left the country. I said, okay, you don't have freedom of speech in this country. You can't be an honest philosopher. You become a sophist. You can't be a philosopher if you don't have freedom of speech. You can't. Why? Because you cannot use certain words that are proper to expressing certain ideas. Now, recently, because the dictionary was being used to debunk certain political allegations, because apparently the people you claiming to be from certain political spheres did not even know what their political affiliation actually meant. And this was exposed in debate, and instead of them admitting that they didn't know anything, no, they tried to claim a fallacy, a dictionary fallacy, or something of the sort. That using a dictionary definition to clarify uh, a term was a fallacy, which is not true. According to this, suddenly came into being fallacy. It's only when you insist on a term that has nothing to do, because a term, like a definition, refer to several, a word can have several meanings. This is why a dictionary is necessary. This fallacy seems to allude to, correct me if I'm wrong, but what if I'm right, seems to allude to a wrong definition being used to define something that means something else. Like the same word means two different things. Like for instance, mountain. A mountain is a mountain, or it can be if you say, I have a mountain of stuff to do, or pile. Well, let's use pile because mountain that's used in some other languages that I'm thinking right now. A pile. Pile can mean several things, and it can also mean a pile of stuff that you need to get done. But a mountain of stuff, you used mountain in a metaphorical language, with a metaphorical meaning. It means a mountain can be understood as a pile. You understand what I'm saying, what I'm trying to express here in a language that it's not even my original language. They might mean that, and not the mountain proper. Because then the person would jump into this fallacy and say, oh, but you can't have a mountain because a mountain means a literal mountain. No, but it also could mean a lot of stuff, a pile of stuff. No, because a mountain means a mountain. So that's the problem. They want to imply that the person would be trying to use, because the mountain can mean several things, but it's being used out of context, which in most cases were not the case. But who cares about facts with most of the politically oriented people, right? They don't really care about facts, because if they did, they would be highly skeptical of their own political ideologies, regardless the side. We are not talking about sides, people. If I would be mentioning which did what, who did what, when, and how, which I'm not doing. So I'm not pointing out sides. I'm pretty sure that those engaged in those debates already know what I'm talking about, but those who don't, that's not the direction I want to go, neither for those who know. That's not the direction, that's not the point I'm making, which side is right, which side is wrong. I'm just saying that one of the sides is trying to turn dictionary definitions of terms into fallacies, because by doing that, they can then claim whatever they want to claim. It can mean anything they want, anything their little black hearts tell, anything their narcissistic screeches tell them it means, which is not the case, and it shouldn't be the case. Instead, they want to force legally people to accept terms that are not correct, and this is becoming a problem to the point that academics are risking their own reputation, their own career, into the fire of those political ideologues. And that's a problem. Now, I'm confident enough, perhaps it's early for me to say, it's definitely early, because certain political ideas haven't reached the boiling point that they usually do. And when they do, a lot of people get killed. And it's usually the intellectual class. But who knows, perhaps today, because of the information technology that we have, the information runs faster than what they can mount as a defense against facts. So people will get the facts before they get the twist and lies. So they won't accept the lies because they have the facts beforehand. Because the point with dishonest people before the age of information has always been that they could control the mass before information came, and if the information came, it was already under control. Now the information comes first, so when they can actually mount a defense, it's usually too late, and the reason why several of them are being debunked currently. They do not hold the same power. The media is losing power. It's inefficient, it's incorrect, and people don't like it, they don't want it. And it's usually just negative news all the time, only negative energy. I mean, I think people are a bit tired of that. So, of all the abuse. Again, I just made a video about that, you know. I can take a point, I can be proven wrong, I can be lambasted for doing wrong. I accept it. What I don't accept is if you come on, if your first sentence is, oh, you are this and this and this and that, without knowing me, you don't know anything about me, Mr. or Miss, so spare me. I'm not what you're trying to paint me on. Because this is called poisoning the well. You're poisoning the well, you understand? You're presenting, you're dehumanizing, you're defacing someone, you're trying to pull them down so you can then sell a product. No, you can even pull me down after you sold me a product, but let's hear what you have to say first. Otherwise, you are trying to poison the well, and that's really silly. With a person like me, I can see it coming from miles away, and I won't be fooled. I don't have time for that. You can say whatever you want, sure. Like, you understand, freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want. I'm not going to go after you, but I'm definitely going to block you. You understand? Same applies. It's just common sense, right? I don't want to be abused without a reason. If I've done something despicable, oh, pretty sure, go ahead. But if I haven't done anything despicable, save me, spare me of your personal frustrations. I have nothing to do with them. You know, everyone is welcome. But be nice, you know, but at least be fair. If you can't be nice, be fair. So the same goes with this guy Nietzsche. He was pointing out some inconsistencies. He was mocking the whole seriousness of his time, as I see it. And some people might not have liked it. And they took revenge on him because they had the power to do so. And this has also a little to do with, you understand, it's a little bit of everything I've been noticing along the last decades, that now that they reopened the whole Nietzsche situation there, was he, what kind of illness did he have? What if he didn't have an illness? What if they put him in a mental institution? Like Many, like several intellectuals, were put in mental institutions under the communist regimes because they were either killed or they were put into forced labor camps or they were sent to mental institutions because of the things that they had to say or because of the things that they knew or because of the things they realized. And they could be a potential danger for the totalitarian powers to be. So what if he wasn't sick at all and some people just didn't like what he had to say, so they punished him? It could be that. Again, I don't have the records of his mental health, but I can see clearly. Like, for instance, here, what I've seen, and I'm shocked, I'm so shocked what I've seen in the social security system in a way, uh, following the whole uh, how it has been developing. Like they are taking it away. They are taking the welfare system in Scandinavia is being taken away. It's being slowly eroded, and they are using propaganda to do so. In Denmark, it all started with this guy. They took some drug addict, some guy who needs serious therapy time. I think he was addicted to methadone, not methadone, but to like he was taking methadone, I believe. He was into serious drug addiction, and they took him and presented him as the typical social security uh, welfare person, and he said that he would rather not work because reason like something of the sort that he was just taking advantage of the system to get away with not having a job. I mean, the guy had serious problems. You won't hire a drug addict for real, depending on the addiction in certain places. You won't. So a guy like that has difficulties of getting a job, or perhaps he didn't want, or rather, have a person like that away from work. Now here I am. I'm going to jump again to an example that is completely far from that, but so you can understand the whole picture, because these are all the informations I've been gathering in my head. When I heard that news, it piled up all this information in a mountain of information that took me to the conclusion that perhaps Nietzsche was not ill at all. He just stepped in the toes of some bureaucrats and they wanted to screw him over because they got offended or hurt or, you know, it hit a nerve with them and they did what petty bureaucrats do. They destroy your career, they destroy your life. That's what petty bureaucrats do with people they either envy or they hate. They destroy them. And we always forget the human aspect. We think we are so intellectual. We think they are so uh, intelligent all the time. We think we are so rational, but we are really, we have a lot of animal in us. We are animals. So actually, it's funny talking with religious people, the really religious people. They say, "No, we are not animals." They really say that. I'm not kidding you. Okay, people that you say hello to in the street, they believe that we are not animals because we are God's creation, but so are animals. But and you can't really discuss that because they've been brainwashed into it, perhaps even beaten, broken, like psychologically broken by beatings and God knows what, to believe that kind of stuff. So you can't even really blame them because they didn't have a choice in many levels. So you've got to understand and deal with that, or don't, because what can you do, you know? But they used that guy. They even carved a what is it called, like a hit uh, name for that guy. They call him Lazy, was it Lazy Søren or something like that? Søren or Jørgen. It's a common Danish name, you know. It's like calling someone Lazy John or Lazy Jack. It became a hit piece about him, and people were outraged. The media was outraged, and they, because of this guy, of a drug addict who said that he would rather not work in a debate. How the hell did they select him to an intellectual debate with in TV, you know, in live TV? Like, I don't know. And anyway, an intellectual debate, because someone has a tie and, you know, talks fancy, it's intellectual. But because of that, they reformed the entire social welfare system, and they're still reforming it. They are taking more and more and more and more, and I've been following it in the news, and it's outraging. Like, currently, based on what I understood, uh, at least in Denmark, you don't really have like as you used to. If you were like, if you were unemployed, you went to the social security, they read, okay, sign these documents, okay. And then they would, I know because I did it. You know, I did it when I was in university, after I was in university, and in between every job, because I don't want to be out in the streets, so I have to pay my bills. Then, to be honest, my thing is art, my thing is philosophy, so a work is kind of, it gets in the way all the time, but fair enough. But so you would just receive your social benefits, and that was that. Like, today you have to work for your social benefits, and we can debate if it is right or is it, but when you know that this was completely different, and mind you, the systems, because then there was something else, like people were afraid of being in social security because it, like, it wasn't a social security was for the retarded people, you understand, like for people who are really the drug addicts, the retarded, the people who didn't have a real chance in the true working market. Like, I've been proven wrong with the retarded people, because one day I saw a scene that completely changed my mind in the topic. Uh, like, there was this woman, and she was desperate, and she didn't really speak Danish, and uh, she didn't know how to get, and people were aggravated because she was trying to ask for information, uh, and then she started talking with and then the bus driver, he, um, yeah, for those who do not know, I don't own cars. I don't believe in having cars right now, currently. I might in the future, but right now I think it's a big waste of money. With the with the whole transportation system in Denmark, why should I take a car? Then you have to pay insurance, then you have to have a garage, then you have to, you know, then your car breaks, then you have to, oh, there's so much. No, rather not, you know, rather not. I'm not into fancy, like I have, when I want fancy, I get fancy. So perhaps this is why I am not interested. Like, for me, it's not an achievement really. It's a natural trait. I'm not kidding. Like, you know, like I tend to get what I want. So calm, you know, then I have to drive. I have to constantly be looking at stuff. I can't really think. I don't know. Perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps I'm being ridiculous. Perhaps I'm just being ridiculous. Some people might prefer, perhaps they think better in cars. Me, I tend to get sleepy. So now you know. I don't have cars, and I'd rather take public transportation. Yeah, that's something about me. I have my bike. I have my bicycle. I drive my bike. I like to drive my bicycle. I like to drive my bike. But anyway, I'm talking about Nietzsche, and now I'm talking about driving bicycles, singing, driving my bicycle. Oh boy. Perhaps, now I lost the track absolutely of what I'm talking about. How delicious. Yes. Then this woman suddenly, and I only noticed because the person was so considerate, was so polite, that it made me look actually, and I realized that the bus driver, he was actually handicapped. Like he had several, at least, like, I wouldn't use the word retarded because currently it's badly seen, but what is the PC word for that? What happened to shell shock? Um he was mentally challenged, and the woman, because he was patient, he was polite, and he started speaking English to her, another language, probably better than I do even. Uh, well, that puts me. That woman calmed down, and she listened, and he calmed her down, and he could explain to her, perhaps because they were in the same IQ length, she could understand where she had to go, that this was not the bus, because she was freaking out. Um, and she thanked him, and it was beautiful. Like, that handicapped person was more polite than most people I find online, to be honest. And because he was polite, he could calm her down and she could understand. And he tried to communicate with her in another language. And that alone, psychologically, for that person, was a huge, massive help because it worked. And I was amazed. After that, my position was completely changed. They can be better than normal people in a job. But there are those, and I'm going to jump again, still in the topic. There are those who, like, for those who ever, have you ever watched Chief Ramsay, like the Hell's Kitchen and all that? You should. Because you will see in the series, I don't know if there is, well, of course, there is dramatization in it, but not to that point. There's always one in the team when they do the Hell's Kitchen, the two teams competing. There's always one, usually in a team, that is an absolute sociopath. And they pretend to work and they pretend to listen and they always think big of themselves and put themselves and pretend to be something they are not, until they're exposed by Chief Ramsay and their team suffers. It's completely slow. The whole system doesn't work. The dishes never get done, and there's always something wrong, and there's a huge spoil of food, and until the Chief Ramsay gets to that guy, when, or girl or woman, both genders, and when Chief Ramsay gets to that person and kicks them out, finally, once and for all, confronts the lunatic, and the lunatic usually freaks out because in their mind nobody's bigger than them. So, and when they're kicked out, they still pretend like they're the big shots and they decided to go. And yeah, then the whole thing works. So why have those people in the working market? It's not good for them, and it's not good for production, for the efficiency. And I have come to realize that production is a lot to do with efficiency. You know, it's the whole thing. Like, I worked in factories. There's another thing about me. You know, if you think I always wasted my life in just reading books and reading books and reading books and keep on reading books and studying this and studying that, That's really like, sure, it can form a character, like it can build up an intellectual, but can you really understand? Can you really understand the plight of the people if you haven't taken a toll in that sense, a personal, physical toll on this sense? I can proudly say I understand way more about working life because I've worked in places as like when I was young, and like 17 years old, I was teaching English. Yeah, English. Shame on me or whomever hired me. But I was actually teaching English in another country for executives. That was my first job, teaching English for executives. But I worked in big companies, and that was when I was 17, the official job. Before that, I worked with art. I helped my father do some artworks and stuff like that. I was learning, he was teaching me, and I was helping him. And it was great. But so you understand, I've been working for pretty some time and in bigger stuff than just. But I worked also partially a little for a short amount of time as a courier in a big company, and actually several things in that company. As it used to be when you started in a big company, you usually started as a courier and then you went along, they liked your work, and then you were promoted. Like it happened to me, only that it took really fast time for me to move ahead and change, and I ended up in that specific company working in the human resources department in a very short time. But I worked in the street. I delivered papers from one company and another, and I could have had another job, much better job, but I wanted to see what it was about. I wanted to learn what it was about. I'm curious. It's very easy just to assume that you know something, but can you really understand? Can you really understand, for instance, what it is to take 2 hours of bus to go to work in a crowded bus because everybody's taking the bus at the same time, and then be in that work? Probably, and I know some people that will think, oh, he's so dumb. He went and did that actually. He actually went and did this. He did this shitty job. They would snob. But what do they know? I mean, believe me, if they take their family wealth, it's the same people like who would mock me for actually daring taking those jobs because they think it's dumb when you don't need to. Why do that, right? It's the same people that I actually seen, and this is a preemptive strike on them. I actually seen break down in tears when their dads said, "Oh, you are not dating that," in front of their friends, mind you, me being one. Their dads said, "Oh, you're not dating that girl." And then the guy asked, "But why, daddy?" A guy over 20, mind you, a guy over 20 years of age. And their dad, and all proud, like literally like that, enjoying the moment because that guy, his son, is in front of his best friends, of the people his son wants to impress. And he's just humiliating his son intentionally in front of his best friends. What a dad. Anyway, those are the same guys who would snob me for taking those jobs. At least I had my own money in the pocket. Didn't need to hear what that guy had to hear. And he would say, "Oh, like the woman that this guy was actually in love with, and talking about getting married and having kids and all that. But the father just butted in just to show who is in charge." And the dad would proceed then and say, in front of the friends, mind you, "Because I said so, And if you don't agree with me, I'll take the car because the car is in my name and it's my car. Literally doing that, you know. And the guy over 20, would break down and cry, "No, Daddy, no, don't do that to me, Daddy." So if those guys would mock me for taking those jobs, at least never in my life I had to hear that kind of garbage from anyone. So, and I thank my parents for giving me that structure. So, mind you, they help me every now and then. You know, my life is not all flowers, but I help them as well. That's another topic. Point being, I did those works to understand, not that I needed to, thank God I didn't. I always had choices. However, I chose to, because I wanted to see how things work, how they were structured, how everything worked. Some of the reasons that I even took some jobs in certain places, and I even been in social security sometimes. I want to see what is going on so I can feel the pulse, I can keep the pulse of reality, of the situation, and what I should be aware of and stay the hell away from. So currently, the social security system, at least in Denmark, doesn't work. Okay, it's not. It's basically back to what they call in Denmark bondefangeri. Bondefangeri means capturing peasants. It's peasant capturing. You know what feudal lords used to do. They used to go around when they needed people to work, and they used to chase peasants and capture them and put them to work. And you know, like they're doing that in the current social security system. Some people might agree, some people might cheer, they might think it's a great idea, but I just see wasted potential and terrible results, because for the same reason you shouldn't, you know, the Hell's Kitchen situation, that little idiot is clogging the entire system. Production will go down, work will be a disgrace, it will be annoying, it will be time consuming, it will be frustrating. Putting the forgive the term, social losers into those jobs is not a game for anyone. It's an illusion. It's just so they can get some statistics, so they can prove the little bureaucrats, the petty bureaucrats again, and that's what I'm criticizing here, the bureaucrats, not the people who cannot do better or don't want to do better. Let them be free. Pay them a little money to stay away from work, because if they go to work, work will get ruined. You understand? Why? Because they can't help it. Why do you think they're in Social Security when they had a choice? When there's so many options? Because they can't help it. If anything, the educational system broke them. I have in my papers from the Danish school, oh, he's not university material. I became 16th place in the university out of 3,000 people competing for my position. You understand? I'm definitely university material. I've been called by the dean in Denmark, one of the brightest minds of Denmark. So I am university material, but they wrote my why? Because I dared confront a teacher in my school, because he was married, he just had a child, and he was dating one of the girls in my class. And the girl was suffering, and while everyone else was just shut and taking it and letting the girl suffer, and she started to talk about suicide, because she fell in love with him. She was 15, what do you expect, 14, 15? Because I dare confront him. I said, no, this is wrong, and I went to the principal. So the principal wrote, oh, he's not university material. Why? Because my mouth is that big? No. because I did something that everybody else would rather not do, to, not suffer consequences in the hands of those little demons that are taking care of the bureaucratic system currently. Same kind of people, for the same reason that I got not university material, and later on, like, who gives a fuck of what those losers write? I went and tried university and I came in the best, allegedly the best Danish university that there is, having that in my paper. I sent those papers. I don't care, bite me. Um, I did this, sending them those papers with the, oh, he's not university material, watch out. Don't let him in. And I passed and I came in and, I studied economics, I studied theology, like whatever I wanted. Sure, not everything I wanted, but hey, you can't have, can you really have everything you want? I'm pretty happy, But so many times, those bureaucrats really try to screw with my papers in life. With everything, my reputation, my papers, like the idle gossip, the horrible things I heard some people are talking about me is just outrageous. You really feel like going physical on them because it's horrifying, the kind of stuff that they come up with. So all this leads to this hypothesis, or you wouldn't call it a theory, that perhaps Nietzsche was not crazy at all. Perhaps he got nervous, perhaps he got mad at someone for being an absolute, abject, incompetent Dummkopf. And he had enough of someone who happened to be a bureaucrat who was probably pushing his buttons to the point that he got angry. And then, because he got angry, because he has blood in his veins instead of water, like those guys seem to, because they're cowards, they managed to put him in a mental institution forever. Well, forever, at least until he died. Who knows, perhaps they even killed him in a mental institution. And we are living those days, they sent a guy who put bacon in a mosque entrance. They sent him to jail. They sentenced him to jail for hate crime in England for 12 months. They killed him in jail. So these are the times we're living, folks. We tend to take things for granted. We think that it's intelligence, that it is intellect, that, because you manage to make a better society, it's going to remain better forever. And ignorant or less capable people are not going to take it from you because you're so much better than them. But it's an illusion. Anyone can take anything from you at any given time and place. History has proven that several times. We went back and forth several times in history in terms of technology and advancements and everything, really. The Greeks, they had figured out steam engines. We could have entered the industrial age already back then, but then their society collapsed. They were taken over by the people who didn't give a damn about that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think it was the Romans. The Romans were on the rise, and Archimedes, the guy who was developing steam engines, literal, doors that would open and shut with the use of steam and several other gadgets. He was a scientist fighting in a city, fighting against the Romans, and then the Romans sent in some Praetorians, elite guard, to capture the city, and they went through some cliffs, and Archimedes' house was right in the path between the city and the cliff, so they passed through his house, and they saw Archimedes saw the Romans there, and then he came in from his house because they were stepping in his calculations in the floor and everything. And then he said, "Hey, don't step in my circles." And he came out, and then one of the Praetorians saw him, "I'm authorita." Bam! Snapped him in the belly, and they killed Archimedes. With that, they completely obliterated an entire industrial revolution, man. And then we were back. And then the Romans were building technology, and then something happened, and they were taken over by technologically inferior types, and then society went back in time, and science and research, medicinal research and all that was thrown back 1,000 years again, and we had to build up again. And now we have current situation we are into. Some people say, "Oh, there's nothing to be compared." Yes, it is. We are about to go down again. Another 1,000 years walking back, might be even worse, perhaps even forever. That's the point. We don't know. We cannot grant anything. There's no guarantee we are going to keep on forward because of so many times we went backwards. You understand? And it's tragic. I don't want that to happen again. I hope that because we have the age of information, we can prevent it this time, but it's not certain either. So I'm a bit concerned because of all those things I've seen in my life, and there are more, but I'm not going to put it here so I don't become too annoying. That perhaps Nietzsche was not mad at all. Perhaps it was just a group of petty bureaucrats who had a different ideology, and they didn't like Nietzsche because Nietzsche was somehow touching or exposing what they believed in, and they wanted to screw him. And they did, because he's declared insane, and then his career is over. Nobody takes him seriously, right? Because he talks too different. He must be crazy. You understand the danger of that? And I just don't want that to happen to anyone else, that's all.